This week on Hometown Ghost Stories, Huntsville is the most populated city in Alabama, and it also may have the most ghost stories in the state. From the ghosts of Civil War soldiers held prisoner at a train depot, to ghosts of an old governor rising from his grave, the tales vary. If that's not scary enough, envision a swing moving on its own within the cemetery at a place that the locals call the Dead Children's Playground. This is Hometown Ghost Stories, Huntsville, Alabama.
Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jenna adjusted the makeshift pillow formed from her hoodie that was under her head as she looked up at the stars. The weather had just started turning into a crisp chill in the Alabama air over the past week. "Perfect night for this," Billy said while laying next to her. Jenna turned her head and smiled, staring at Billy. A twig snapped on the other side, and Jenna whipped her head back, staring down a row of tombstones that disappeared into the darkness. "Just a possum, probably," Jenna said. "We should probably get going, though. It's getting kinda late." Billy turned on his side and stared at Jenna with a puppy dog-like expression. Jenna sighed, staring back at him, and gave out a quiet, "Fine," then followed it up with, "Just this once, though." "Yes!" Billy exclaimed, popping up to his feet. Billy and Jenna had ended their first date by going to the Maple Hill Cemetery to lay and stare at the sky. They continued to do this every month, but recently, Billy had been begging Jenna to walk through Dead Children's Playground on the way home. The thought always gave Jenna a pit in her stomach. As much as she was into spooky things, the stories that went around town about that place scared her to death. She finally agreed that she would go one time if he promised to never ask her again. But after agreeing, Jenna already regretted this decision. After collecting their things and walking a little ways, they began towards the playground. As they approached the entrance, the pair heard a slow, creaking noise. Chills shot down Jenna's spine, but she tried to rationalize it, much like she did with the possum from earlier. "They're just stories. They're just stories. They're just stories," Jenna repeated in her head over and over again. When they entered the playground, they found the source of the noise. A single swing was slowly coming to a rest. There was no wind that night, so what, or who, could have caused it, Jenna thought to herself. Billy was much more curious than Jenna, and went over to the swing to investigate. Can we please just leave after you check it out?" she stammered. "Yeah, of course," he said back. Billy was kneeling at the swing when Jenna began to hear something near one of the limestone rock walls. Goosebumps formed on her skin, and Billy let out a loud, "Hello?" facing the direction of the noise. Jenna walked towards the swing set, and Billy told her he'd be right back and to stay right there. Too scared to respond, she shook her head and sat in one of the seats on the swing set. While watching Billy move towards the noise that they heard, Jenna could swear that she heard a giggle of a child ring out behind her. Before she was even able to move, she heard a voice whisper in her ear, "Play," and two small hands began to push her on the swing set. I'm Rob Coakley, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, Huntsville, Alabama. Huntsville was founded in 1811 and was even the first state capital of Alabama before shortly after being moved. Currently, it is the most populated city in the state of Alabama, and it is also home to some of the most terrifying ghost stories in the entire state. Let's start our haunted tour where many others' journey to the city began, the Huntsville Depot. The train station was built in 1860 as the eastern headquarters for the Memphis and Charleston Railroad. It operated until March 30th, 1968, and is the oldest depot in the state of Alabama and one of the oldest in the country. A few short years after opening, the Civil War would break out, and the station would become a strategic point overtaken by Union troops on April 11th, 1862. 159 Confederate soldiers would be held as prisoners on the third floor of the depot for 10 days, and graffiti from those soldiers still remain. Some of those markings include names, regiments, prayers, and even personal messages. After the war, the government would return the depot, but it was left in ruin, and the Memphis and Charleston Railroad would go bankrupt and sell the depot to the Southern Railway System. Upon closing in 1968, the depot would be placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1971. Over the years, plenty of paranormal occurrences have been reported at the train station. Many of the experiences within the depot have said to occur mostly on the second and third floor of the building. Visitors have reported cold spots, a heavy feeling, and even full-body apparitions of Confederate soldiers. A meeting was held at the depot one evening. Upon completion, the participants were chatting outside. While they stood there, they saw what appeared to be a ball of fire come out of the third-floor window, crashing down and dissipating into the ground. There were no signs of anything being burnt afterwards, leaving the people there stunned at the ghostly fire that they had all just witnessed. A common sighting at the train station is that of a phantom conductor walking the passenger platform of the depot. At one point, when the platform was closed off to the public, several people saw someone walking on the platform. As a worker went to let the person know the place was off limits, they noticed that the door was still locked from the inside, and there was no possible way for someone to get there any other way. As more people began to look, they noticed that he was dressed as an old-time conductor, and shortly after, he disappeared. Going from a place where many people's journey began in Huntsville, let's turn our attention to somewhere that their voyages would end. That place is the Maple Hill Cemetery, which is the oldest cemetery in Huntsville. Maple Hill Cemetery began operation in 1822. There are many tales of hauntings at these burial grounds. However, you cannot tell the history of Maple Hill Cemetery without talking about the Bib family. And we'll start with Thomas Bib, who was the second governor of the state of Alabama. Thomas Bib would become the second governor of Alabama after the first governor died from falling off of his horse while in office. That first governor was Thomas's brother William. William Bib has a ghost story of his own that we'll cover in the discussion portion in just a little bit. Thomas owned a plantation called Bell Manor close to Huntsville that he adored. Business dealings often had William traveling the South, and unfortunately, during one of these trips, he would pass away while in New Orleans. Family and friends knew that his wishes were to be buried on the property of Bell Manor. Arrangements were made, and his remains were shipped back to Huntsville in a barrel of whiskey to help preserve the body. Upon arrival, he was buried in a small cemetery on the grounds of Bell Manor, as he wished. However, that wouldn't last. Maple Hill Cemetery was becoming known as a resting place for Alabama governors. The family would make the decision to exhume Thomas's body and have him buried in Maple Hill. The spirit of Thomas has been restless ever since. It's said on certain nights, an old black carriage being pulled by two large white horses pull up to the grave. Thomas then rises out of the ground and gets into the carriage that begins to drive around the cemetery, searching for a way to return to his manor. The carriage is never able to escape and eventually fades into the night to repeat the process for all eternity. This wasn't the first Bib family ghost story to occur in Maple Hill, though. 4 years prior to the death of William, his son William D. Bib would wed Mary Chambers, making her Mary Chambers Bib. The day of the wedding would end in tragedy, though. Not feeling well, Mary asked her nanny to get her medicine for her to take it. The nanny mistakenly grabbed poison instead of the medicine. After getting more sick and eventually bedridden, Mary would pass away several weeks later. She was only 19 years old. In tremendous grief, William D. Bib would erect the first mausoleum within Maple Hill Cemetery. Legend states, not only was she entombed in her mausoleum, but she was placed in it sitting in her favorite rocking chair. Visitors that go to the resting place of Mary and knock on the mausoleum may get a little more than they bargained for. It's said that after knocking, you may hear a slow creaking of the rocking chair moving back and forth. Many believe it's the way Mary acknowledges those that have come to visit her. Sally Carter was just 15 years old when she came to Huntsville in 1837 to visit her sister Mary, who lived at Cedarhurst Mansion with her husband. Shortly after arrival, Sally would become ill and tragically pass away just short of her 16th birthday. She would be buried in a small family plot on the property of Cedarhurst, and shortly after, the ghost of Sally would be seen by many people over the years. One of the more known stories is that of a 17-year-old boy who was visiting in 1919 and staying in one of the upstairs bedrooms. He awoke in the morning, sweating from a nightmare. In this nightmare, a dark thunderstorm appeared over the mansion and began to violently shake it. He could see the gravestones in the small cemetery being knocked down by the force of the storm. As he stood there watching, a teenage girl appeared to him and asked him to please pick up her tombstone and set it back where it should be. This is the point in the nightmare that the boy woke up and was relieved that it was nothing more than a dream. However, as if drawn to it, he got dressed and headed immediately to the headstones in the yard. The boy was terrified to find the headstone of Sally knocked over. The ghost of Sally had appeared to the boy to ask for help. Throughout the years, Sally's headstone would be constantly vandalized, and when a housing development was planned for the area, Sally and the rest of the people buried there were moved to Maple Hill Cemetery. The family would leave their graves as unmarked, as they didn't want people to continue to harass the grave of Sally. Our last story for Maple Hill Cemetery may take you a little by surprise. Usually it's a grave or a mausoleum that we cover within a cemetery. For this haunting, though, we're going to talk about a playground known locally as the Dead Children's Playground. Surrounded by limestone walls and shaded by trees, during the day, the playground is a place of fun for families. During the night, however, it is believed to be used by the spirits of the children of Maple Hill Cemetery. In 1919, the Spanish flu hit the city of Huntsville hard, and although it's unknown how many children died due to the flu, it's believed to be in the hundreds. And many believe that it's the souls of these children that come to the playground to have fun in the afterlife. Reports of swings moving on their own, as well as child-sized shadow figures moving about, are just some of the hauntings. People who have taken photos have seen balls of light appear that weren't there when they took the picture. Perhaps the creepiest report is that of people hearing conversations happening between multiple children and the sounds of kids laughing as you pass by the playground, with no one being there. If you decide to visit the Dead Children's Playground, perhaps singing them a nursery rhyme will endear you to them, and we here at Hometown Ghost Stories have prepared one for you to recite. In the park where shadows play, little ghosts come out to stay. Swings that move with no one near, laughter only you can hear. Round and round the spirits spin, tiny hands invite you in. But beware, don't stay too long, or you'll join their ghostly song. In the night when skies are black, they won't let you wander back. Stay too late and you will see the playground's where you'll always be.
Welcome into episode number 134 of Hometown Ghost Stories. We're covering the ghosts of Huntsville, Alabama. I'm Jesse Wilkins. I'm joined by Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
And boy, did we cover a lot of them, and we have a couple others to talk about as well. So buckle in and let's talk about some ghosts.
Been looking forward to this location for a long time. Plenty to cover. We're also joined by Dave Wilkins. Hello, Dave.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome in. Always good to see you gentlemen this fine Tuesday evening. And thank you guys for tuning in. I understand there might be some sort of a debate going on tonight at the same exact time, but they messed up by not scheduling their broadcast around ours, right?
And we debate every Tuesday night. Like that's what we do. We debate the entire night of Tuesday. So they should have checked with us first.
Yep, that's true. The number one debate in the country. Some say in the world. A bunch of gifted memberships before the stream even started. 20 from Tess, 20 from Crazy Legs, 20 from Brenda C, $5 from Crazy Legs, and $1.99 from Mother McTibbles, who asked if the donation was big enough to have Dave fired, which the answer is yes. So Dave's final episode. Finally, we've been waiting. But thanks to everybody who is tuning in. Rob just straight up dropping bars, spitting bars at the end of that podcast.
Hey man, we were trying to figure out a fun way to end this episode, and I'm like, we are talking about a playground called Dead Children's Playground. We need to do a nursery rhyme, right? So that's what we did.
Might as well. Next week we're gonna end it with some battle raps. It's gonna be great. So be ready for that. Just tune straight in. Tune right in. But no, this whole town, is it town or a city? Town?
City.
It is a city. This whole city seems to be full of hauntings. Another one of those. This is one that I've had on the back of my radar. So it's been on the back of my radar for a while.
The back of the radar.
Yep, right at the back of that. Yep, I'm just spitting in the dark here, but it is a very haunted place with a lot of haunted locations. So let's hop right into it, huh?
Let's do it. Before we do that, though, let's talk about a couple of events we have coming up. October 18th, meet us in Weymouth for a live show, which is going to be a ton of fun. And there are just a few rooms left over in Block Island. And you can check out both of these events at hometownghoststories.com. And please, for the love of God, buy some merch. Dave is still showing up to our houses every single morning, FaceTiming us at least 3 times a day, showing us how much merch is left in the store, and he won't buy more until we
he shows up to Rob's house on a dead horse so Rob can beat it.
Yeah,
yes.
It's insane how many dead horses Dave has shown up on, because then he just discards them in my driveway and makes it real difficult for me to get to work. So
it's amazing how you can beat a dead horse about the joke about beating a dead horse.
That was impressive, actually.
I have a talent, and we have to express our talents, is what I was told.
Yes, very true. Well, speaking of expressing our talents, let's hop into your talent-filled episode here and talk about some of these haunted locations that you covered.
Yeah, I found this town to be a little bit more like a way that we could cover it a little different, because we have the train depot, right? That we start this episode with, and that's how a lot of people got to Huntsville, via train back in the day. And then we have so many ghost stories that don't just happen in the cemetery, but just attached to the town in a different way, where you can follow the entire story to the graveyard there. So I wanted to kind of cover it that way, where we're just like interweaving these different tales, because it's a really cool city that I knew, like you, Jesse, I knew some of these stories, but when I started really diving into it and finding some more of the stuff out, finding out more about this city, I keep wanting to say town, because Huntsville is not well known like throughout the country, even though it's the biggest city in Alabama. You think of Birmingham, you think of Montgomery, but Huntsville's actually bigger. And I know people in Alabama are shaking their fist right now, but it's just the way it is, man.
It is the way it is. Yeah, that's what I thought when you said it's a big city in Alabama, and you couldn't remember the name of it. I'm like, oh, it's Montgomery or Birmingham. And you're like, no, it's neither.
Yeah, neither of those. Shut up, Dave. This is what we need to talk about is Huntsville.
Big shout out to Matthew T dropping 20 hometown ghost stories memberships, and shout out to whoever is in Virginia, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Those 3 different people literally just ordered merch right now because
they're just site visitors.
Oh, site visitors. Okay, well, while you're there. Anyways, but we do appreciate you guys for at least visiting the site and having a look. But they could be looking at the live events, and I'm excited about those. But anyways, continuing on, Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, so we start with this depot, and this depot gets built, and within 2 years, the Civil War breaks out. And it becomes like this strategic point. Union forces overtake it, and they lock 150 Confederate soldiers up on the 3rd floor, which 150 is a lot, man. I don't know how they were fitting in there. Like, it had to be like cramped quarters. It was only for 10 days before they transferred them somewhere else.
That's 10 days too many for that many people.
10 is a lot of days to be that cramped.
Yeah, not something that I'd want to do at all. Like, it just sounds terrible. And so you have that whole dynamic. There's a ton of graffiti that's left, which is really cool, on the walls up there from
the soldiers.
Yeah, from the soldiers that were there. They said there's even some Union soldiers that wrote some stuff.
What kind of things did they write?
So they wrote like their names, their regiment. There were some personal notes as well. I think there was Bible scriptures that some of them wrote. So a bunch of different things that they still have intact there.
And this is the only graffiti that we approve of at haunted locations.
Yes. Yeah. Like at a haunted location. Yeah.
I find stuff like that so eerie, like especially when people leave like specific messages at locations, because that's kind of, it's scratched into the wall, it's timeless, and it carries like a heavy weight to it.
I'll tell you the heaviest. We were in a
I got one heavier.
Well, we'll see. We were in this tunnel. It's a heavy graffiti off we're having here. Anyways, I was in a museum in Crete where it was a World War II thing where they had the tunnels that were dug out by the Cretans, and then the Nazis came in and they expanded the tunnels and kept digging them. And then the Nazis had obviously won that battle. The Battle of Crete, they put up a great resistance. They're still very angry about it, as you can understand. But yeah, so Germany occupied Greece, and in Crete they had these tunnels. You can go visit them still, and we did. And scratched into the wall, they showed us, and they had it like circled, was someone, when the Nazis were there, they had carved a swastika into the wall. And they did a terrible job of it too. You're carving it into a cave wall, but it was just so eerie to see, carved by most likely a Nazi, you know what I mean, during World War II. Crazy stuff.
So the one I know of that actually sends chills up my spine is similar. It's in one of the concentration camps. I forget which one, but in the wall is scratched, "If there is a God, he'll have to beg my I just fucked it up. If there's a God, he'll have to beg my forgiveness."
Yep. Yeah. Very similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that one wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like you at all, but it wins.
Thank you.
And the one that I saw that's better than both of yours. I'm just kidding. I don't have one. I don't.
I was gonna say better is a weird word to use.
So there have been Confederate soldiers seen at this depot, and
which the depot looks small too, for it to be 150 people crammed on the upper floor of that thing. I mean, all I can think of is the Hearts of Hall and how hot it was in this very similar looking building built around the same time, Civil War era. And you just think of all those people crammed up there in the South where it's hot as hell with absolutely no air conditioning. I mean, we can call and confirm if we want to see if there's air conditioning, but I probably wouldn't do it. And are you going to make it, Rob? Everything okay?
No, I'm going to die. You guys have to keep talking.
Like I got, there's only so much I can talk about this building. I'm going to need you to figure it out.
Yeah. So Anyways, as I die live on the show. So you can imagine 150 soldiers roughly in this third floor, the amount of energy left behind just from those 10 days, the residual haunting too. Like if you're going to have a residual haunting for anything, it would be the time you spent crammed on a third floor as a prisoner, right?
Right.
So I know Papa Squatch says people were smaller back then, which is true, but I mean, even 150 Daves up there would be too much.
Especially 150 pissed off Daves like the hearts of fall. Oh God.
No wonder a ball of fire came out of the third floor window at some point. It was just Dave launching things.
Dave's just breathing fire out the window.
Which is another crazy story that a bunch of people were having a meeting here and a ball of fire bursts out the window, doesn't break it, just sort of comes through it, hits the ground, and just evaporates.
So wait, when you say doesn't break it, am I to assume that it didn't come out an open window?
Well, that wasn't clarified, to be honest. Maybe it did.
You would assume that if it wasn't some sort of paranormal manifestation, it would have done some sort of damage, whether or not the window was open. It's a ball of fire. You would have seen some sort of a trace of the fire, I guess, depending on how fast it was going, depending on how big it was, I suppose. But judging from the picture that AI created for that, I'm going to assume that that is historically accurate and completely true. And it was a big ball of fire.
It is literally the only ball of fire that AI is capable of making. I've tried this in the past, and they just like, oh, ball of fire? You mean a planet coming through a window? Because that's all they can do. But anyways, yeah, and then you get the classic ghost story here, which is that of an old conductor that's basically walking back and forth on the platform. And that feels really like a residual haunting as well. Probably walked that platform for years as a conductor, and he doesn't seem to interact with anybody. They just kind of see him there and he'll just disappear. So no one knows exactly who or which conductor from the past it could have been, but there has been multiple sightings of this train conductor there.
That's a cool one. Any ghost train or just a conductor?
I didn't find anything about a ghost train, and I was trying to figure out if they're open now. I know they were shut down for a while. It's like a museum and a historical site. So it seems like it kind of alternates between being open and not being open. So it looks like a cool place to go visit. Huntsville actually looks like a really cool place to go visit overall. And if we are to go visit Huntsville, let's talk about one of the ones we haven't talked about yet. And Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Lowry house?
Yeah, so this one's pretty interesting. So it was built in 1850, and at one time a stop along the Underground Railroad. The story goes that Anne Lowry, a family member of the Lowry family who built the house, was shot dead on the front porch of the house. Some say she was waiting for her husband to return home from the Civil War, but others say she ran downstairs and out onto the porch to let General William T. Sherman's troops, who were burning Huntsville to the ground around her, she wanted to let them know it was a safe house. Regardless of which story is the truth, she was killed in a hall of Union gunfire, despite her being a Union sympathizer. So it sounds like it was a friendly fire. Many, many people claim to see her, and not just people who visit the house. Workmen have been known to ask about the woman on the upstairs window, and people just walking along the street have not only seen her, but have been known to stop and talk to her. So we get this every once in a while with hauntings. Not only do they just see it, so it's more than just, or it could be more than just like a repetition haunting. Mm-hmm. But if you can interact with them, that might signify that it's intelligent haunting. But it could just be somebody going through the motions of what they would do when they were alive. So it could be one or the other. An actress from the theatrical troupe doing Fright Night reenactments at the house was sitting in the kitchen waiting for her entrance when she saw a man some call the Grumpy Butler standing in the pantry staring at her.
I was hoping you brought up the Grumpy Butler because that's the greatest ghost name of all time.
It is one of my favorites, yeah. I can actually probably share a picture of this because it is kind of creepy. It's small, but we can try. And
is this the one in the window?
Yeah.
So while he's pulling that image up, I didn't cover this in the main portion because I was trying to do some research on this, and I couldn't find anything solid with the background of the death or anything, but I didn't look long because I had so much to get through. And I thought, A, you're allowed to do investigations here, so this might be an investigation place for us at some point in the future. And B, we can always cover it because Huntsville has so much that we could always talk about it a little bit more on the next episode that we do in Huntsville.
Yeah. So yeah, I was in the process. I figured you were on the same website I was. So this one's supposed to show a figure in the window. I do see, it looks like a mask, but I see something in the center here. For audio listeners, we're looking at a black and white photo of, I'm assuming it's the upstairs window. And you do see what looks like a face kind of in the middle. You see all these white dots. I'm assuming that's just light reflecting off of the window from the gaps in the leaves or whatever from the tree that's outside. But you do sort of see a face here. I mean, it could just be the blinds, but you got a clear on the right side. It looks like the side of its head almost looks like a dog's face, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Anybody else see a dog?
I actually don't see a dog. Maybe like a pug. But
yeah, you see like the nose over here, eyes up there. It could be that.
I'm judging from the kind of looks like the Dogecoin dog.
It does, yeah.
Kind of looks like a camel.
Yeah, I see kind of like a little skeleton face almost. Also, at least the hollowed out eye there and the nose and mouth. It is creepy, but I do think it is just the blinds. You can see on the left side in the window pane there, there's a hole in the blinds, and it's kind of almost carries over to the right side, which looks like the eye there, and it does have white. Looks like lights or something in the background that are kind of shining through. So that could be throwing it off too.
It could be, but you can't deny that people have had full-blown conversations with the spirits over there. And whether or not that's a paranormal picture, it definitely has the look of a face there. So a pretty cool image.
Yes. Yep. And there's another picture that was taken shortly afterward. And there's a bizarre mask-like image on the upper sleeve of the woman in the picture that nobody could see outside of the camera. Now, this is weird because at first it looks, I don't know how to, Jesse, can you pull that one up? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Is it the one with the witch on the porch?
No, it's above that on the left, the woman standing by the window.
Okay, I got you. 1 sec.
And it's weird because at first glance, it just looks like a camera flare, and you'll see what I'm saying if you're watching. But it also looks just like a mask. It's weird. And
oh yeah.
Oh,
that's the second one that looks like a mask, because the one in the window looked like a mask as well.
Yeah.
This does just strike me as some sort of a lens flare. It's a strange coloring.
But at the same time, people, they say they want to see evidence, and no one can ever provide concrete evidence of a haunting or like just a picture of a ghost or video. And anytime we see one, we're like, it's a camera flare. It's this, and explain it away.
Right.
It's just, you're never going to find evidence for something if you just dismiss everything.
Of course. Yeah. But you got to first look at it with a skeptical lens. And my skeptical lens would say it does look like some strange coloring. Obviously that's not normal. But if you follow the wrinkles of her sleeve going up, it creases right through the middle, and that creates your bridge of the nose. And it looks like this wrinkle over here probably goes across, but you can't really see because it is a very blurry picture, which would create kind of the eyebrows. And then I don't know what these two dark circles for the eyes would be, but it does make it look more like like Phantom of the Opera type face. But yeah.
What's going on like at the bottom of her dress near the chair? That
she's on fire.
Light.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that solves that mystery, I suppose.
And I wasn't saying, just to be clear, I wasn't saying don't be skeptical. You should be skeptical about everything. You should always question things and never take it at face value.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just gullible.
Yeah. So again, this is a place that we might be able to investigate at some point in the future if we end up in Huntsville. So thought we should hit on it in the discussion portion. So I'm glad we did. I think we need to focus on Maple Hill Cemetery now and a bunch of the stories that come from there. And we have to start with the Bib family. Before we start with the Bib family, can I go on a rant?
Yes,
please.
These people in the 1800s and the naming of their families is absolutely ridiculous. They cycled through like 3 names. It would be like William, Thomas, and Mary. And then they just didn't use any other names ever. Trying to research the Bib family is stupid. And I am going to show you guys what I mean. We're going to be talking about Thomas Bib, but I want to show you his family tree for a second, and I'll zoom in a bit. But we have Thomas Bib, whose father was William Bib. He had a brother named William Bib. He also had a son named William Bib. There was an Emily. He was married to Parmalea, which is a weird name. But he had a son named Benjamin Franklin Bib, who was born in 1815 and lived till 1875. He also had another son named Benjamin Franklin Bib, who was born in 1829 and was alive till 1920. And
Hang
then
on, when
for
did- when
some
did-
reason, he has a son named Nimrod. Nimrod. We had two Benjamins and a Nimrod. What are we doing in this Bib family? What were you gonna say there?
I was going to ask, when did the first Benjamin Franklin person die?
60 years.
Oh,
He
so that's
lived
weird.
to be 60 years.
So he had two sons. He named them both Benjamin Franklin.
Yes.
Is that what I?
If
Okay,
I were
so-
the older one, I'd be like, do I suck at this? Do I suck at being Benjamin Franklin?
Well, I know they used to. If one child would die, they would just name the next one the same name. They used to do that a lot. They're like, oh, this one didn't work, so we'll name the next one. But if the other one was alive, it kind of makes me wonder: did he fail the family in one way or another? Were they just not proud of him, or considered him to be?
Or they liked him so much, they're like, how about another?
Yeah,
I mean, that we're coming from a family where my son's named Frank, my dad's named Frank, my two of my uncles are, one of them, I don't know. There's so many Franks everywhere. There's just Franks. We had an aunt named Francis.
Frank?
Yeah, we had an aunt
Sorry.
Francis. Yeah,
Francis, yeah.
you're so both of our grandmothers, maternal and paternal. No, I'm sorry, our paternal grandmother and grandfather are both Francis and Frances. I think that's what you're confusing.
right. Yeah. So there's Franks everywhere in our family, and I kept it going. Yeah.
So I was fighting for my life trying to record this episode between the Thomases and the Williams and everything, trying to keep all the names straight. But this was a very prominent family.
Who did they hate more? Did they hate Benjamin Franklin 2 more or Nimrod?
I mean,
Wait till you meet their
Nimrod.
other kid, moron.
Oh, I have a theory. I've got a theory. The first kid sucked, and they named him Benjamin Franklin. Like, oh, this kid sucks. Let's name the next one Benjamin Franklin. It'll be like a do-over. And that kid sucked too. And they're like, you know what? Fuck it. The third one's just Nimrod.
He's gonna be a Nimrod. We're just gonna name him it. And we're just gonna own it at this point.
The best is also the year of birth for Nimrod is unknown. We just
I just picture him like locked up in the
Where did this Nimrod come from?
up in the attic bedroom in like a gimp suit or something.
could he have been the oldest child or the youngest child? No one knows. Yeah, he's that person in Red Dead that they keep locked up in the outhouse there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely wild that we went with Nimrod for a name and two of the same names. Like, it's just, dude, what are we doing? Anyways, very prominent family. The first two governors of the state of Alabama are William Bibb and his brother Thomas Bibb. And Thomas only becomes governor because his brother William falls off a horse while he's in office and passes away.
Wait. Oh, I think meant like in the office. I was
Yeah,
like,
he
how
was
do you have his
riding
horse
around.
in there?
Yeah,
He deserved this.
it makes sense now why he fell off of it. Right on the desk.
Gets
It
up
was
to
real
heaven. He's
slippery.
like, God's like, how'd you die? He's like, oh, I fell off a horse. Like, okay, what happened? Tripped over the sink in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
So Nimrod is actually a biblical name, and it's Akkadian in Hebrew in origin, and it translates to rebel. And it didn't become an insult until Bugs Bunny cartoons. Bugs
Oh.
Bunny ironically used it as an insult, and ever since then it's kind of taken on a negative connotation.
Mm.
Thanks a lot, Bugs Bunny. You ruined the
Yeah.
Bible.
But we can debunk the fact that they just gave that kid a shitty name. That was just a regular name back
Well,
then.
Dude, it was still a
Yeah.
shitty name back then.
Yeah, well, in retrospect.
No, even back then, I wouldn't want to be called Nimrod, even without the negative connotation. It just
Yeah,
it's not a fun name.
it sounds nerdy.
Yeah,
I'm Nimrod. That's how he
It
talks.
means rebel, though.
Yeah, true.
no, it doesn't.
No, it does.
I'm starting a rebellion.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how Nimrod would have sounded
Just
if he tried.
rebelling against bedtimes is all he rebelled.
What are you rebelling against? Having friends?
That's all
I
that
demand 3 more hours of Fortnite every day.
So let's talk about the brothers that were the first two governors of the state. And we talked about Thomas, who has a really cool ghost story. I don't really believe it too much. He's the one that, oh, and I need to clarify something. He was on his way to New Orleans and he died in Mobile, Alabama. So before we get 8,000 messages, I'm aware that he didn't die in New Orleans. He died in Mobile, but he wanted to be buried at Bell Manor, which was his house, which has since been changed to Belvita, I believe, or something like that. But he gets his wish, he gets buried there, and then the family sort of gets talked into, from what I understand, moving him to the graveyard because it was the burial ground of governors. And it's like completely against his wishes, right? That's where he said where he wanted to be.
Wait a minute. The burial ground was exclusively for governors?
No, it became, sorry, I said the wrong word. It became like known for having governors buried there. It's not just governors.
They're really limiting your.
No.
You have to be a governor to be buried here. So he gets moved, and then the story starts where a black carriage with two white horses would pull up, and it specified full moon, which I was like, not everyone's paying attention to that every time, right? Like it was like on a full moon, this carriage gets pulled by two white horses up to the grave of Thomas Bib, which he rises up, gets inside the carriage, and they ride around the cemetery looking for a way to get back to Bell Manor, which never happens. And it's kind of a cool ghost story, but it kind of feels very folklore more than anything.
For sure.
You know?
But I feel like all folklore is rooted in some degree of fact or something that happened that either gets blown out of proportion or just snowballs into something bigger. I feel like most of it isn't just completely pulled out of thin air.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if there was a carriage in the cemetery one night and somebody saw it and it was near his grave. And that's how the story gets started, and it just gets spread and gets like bigger and bigger. And I bring this one up not only because we talked about it, but then we talk about his brother who fell off the horse. And the ghost story associated with William is that the horse that he fell off of, which I don't know how anyone would know which horse he fell off of looked like, rides up to his grave and tries to ride him back to his house. And it's like, okay, I think wires were getting crossed at some point and people started associating one story, the Thomas story, with his brother William throughout the years as well. So I think that shows how folklore and like word of mouth can spread and wires can get crossed, and we get these different ghost stories because the William one isn't as prominent by any means. You really have to dig to find anything for it, but it almost sounds exactly like his brothers. And I can't imagine that both of them sound a little far-fetched, but there's no way that both of them are having the same recurring ghost story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you would see that, but yeah, if you take it at face value, for sure.
They could both be true, but it's likely that one of them is true and the other one, somebody just got them mixed up. Right. Tess coming through with 20 Hometown Ghost Stories memberships on YouTube. Ooh. And then Crazy Legs following up with 10. My dog snoring in the background right in the middle of it. Absolutely beautiful. We love to hear that.
I was wondering what that was.
Oh, yes.
Is this a record for gifted memberships?
So
quietly, it's up there. I mean, it's either way, it's been a great night, and we appreciate all of the donations and gifted memberships. You guys are absolute legends. If I didn't mention it, Mother McTibbles donated back-to-back $1.99 donations as well. Said, Rob, don't let Dave outlive you.
We will try not to. So that is the story of the two Bib brothers, but they don't even have what I think is the creepiest ghost story in the entire family. The saddest and scariest story goes to Thomas's daughter-in-law, Mary Bib, who, upon marrying William D. Bib, which is Thomas's son, not William's son, she gets sick on her wedding day because she doesn't feel well. Asked for her nanny, which was eye-opening for me. Why is there a nanny for her on her wedding day? I don't think she has children. She's 19 at this point. Anyways, the nanny goes and fetches her medicine. The medicine ends up being poison. It's labeled an accident. She dies several weeks later from ingesting this poison.
Well, hang on. Back to the nanny thing.
Mhm.
If you grew up with a nanny, just because she doesn't serve as your nanny anymore doesn't mean you wouldn't invite her to your wedding. Right? She
Yeah.
could have just been a guest.
True. That's fair. Yeah. Jesse's on mute. He's
Why
trying
she
to
would
talk.
why she would then murder her is beyond me.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like she could definitely be at the wedding, and it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that she's like, oh, I need my medication. And she's like, oh, you know what? I used to be your nanny, and I know what medication you need. Now allow me to go completely bungle this and kill you.
Just absolutely ruin this wedding by
killing the bride. Yeah, that's one of the ways to ruin a wedding.
by really showing how quickly those till death do us part.
I was just about to say, I wonder if the priest was like, until death do you part. Well, you're a free man. I don't know, man. That is not how they planned it out. Or is it?
Or is it?
So William is obviously heartbroken after she passes away. He builds her this mausoleum. It's the first mausoleum in Maple Hill Cemetery. And legends start right away and I really want to know how this starts, that she was entombed sitting in her favorite rocking chair. That's how they put her. It looks too small to be a thing.
Didn't we cover something like this?
Yeah. Someone who got buried, like, I think, it might have been a rocking chair as well, either that or a wheelchair.
Yeah, but she was buried in the ground in it.
Yeah,
so from that story.
This one was too, I think.
No, this one was above ground. You showed a picture of it.
Yeah.
No. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah,
Mary was in a mausoleum.
Gotcha.
The one we covered on, I think it was a Haunted Headlines, was actually buried in the ground in their rocking chair.
Right.
There's another one who got buried in his car. Or maybe I'm confusing him. I think you're right. I think it was the wheelchair. I think the car was just, they built a really cool car.
Yeah, they built a
Headstone.
car for the headstone, which was really cool. But I can't find any, and this is like 1835 that she died, so I couldn't get any newspapers before like the 1860s for Huntsville to see where this rumor started. I couldn't find any source for it, so I don't know if she had a favorite rocking chair. Were people just making this up? But the story is creepy as hell. Going to her grave and knocking on it and just hearing that creaking.
Oh yeah, that is a really creepy story.
Of a rocking chair, like returning to let you know that they acknowledge that you're there to visit her.
Yeah.
So very different, very unique, very
God, imagine, yeah. That's actually one of the scariest stories we've covered on the show. Like, imagine going up to that mausoleum that's supposed to have the dead body inside in a rocking chair and hearing the rocking chair creaking.
That is creepy.
God, that's right up there with the creepiest haunts I've ever heard.
Yeah,
that is so terrifying. And we've talked about this before. Well, we've talked about it before when we talk about rocking chair hauntings. If you just see a rocking chair rocking back and forth, it could be wind, it could be whatever. If you hear the creaking, that means there's weight on it. Now, granted, if there's a body on it, that would be the weight, right?
Right.
But what could cause it to? You wonder, could something cause it to rock in there? Because there wouldn't be a breeze. You assume.
Yeah, her ghost, Dave. Have you followed the story?
Obviously, I'm trying to rule out other things.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, unless like you're slamming on it and it's creating some sort of movement and it's causing the rocking chair inside to move. But at the same time, I mean, how hard would you have to knock on a mausoleum to get things inside to shift? It'd have to be tough. My only rational thought here is people might be hearing a tree creaking. Mm-hmm. You know, like remember, I'm not even going to bring it up. Remember when we were at a particular haunted bridge? I'm so sick of talking about this place. And it was a windy night, and the tree, it sounded like trees were about to fall on us because they were so creaky. I do wonder if there could have been like some trees like that situation.
Well, we never talk about that part of it where we legitimately thought a tree was going to fall on us.
Yeah.
Right. Well, for us, I mean, those trees it was windy, but the trees were also creaking because there was a ton of snow on them, and that was weighing it down. I doubt that would be the same situation in Alabama.
No, but there are plenty of trees. So I do, because that shot I showed of the cemetery with all the fall foliage, was legitimately that cemetery. So definitely a possibility. But again, this mausoleum is sealed tight, and we don't even know that she was actually buried with her rocking chair. So it'd be, obviously we're not going to open it up. I mean, we might, no, we won't ever do that, but no one's opened it up to confirm it or not.
I would appreciate it if town officials or an undertaker were to go ahead and open it up to confirm. Crazy Legs donating 5 hometown ghost stories memberships, just continuing along, setting the record. Speaking of records, one of our record holders for gifted memberships. Not saying you have to. It's been a very generous episode. It's been great. Demon King hanging out in chat. Welcome back, buddy. It's always good to have you here, my friend. Great. Absolute legend.
Yes. So that is one of the creepier ghost stories that we've covered recently. Just that one little nugget of hearing the creaking rocking chair. And then we have to talk about something that might actually be creepier, which is the Dead Children's Cemetery, which is just a name. Just in name is terrifying.
Dead Children's Cemetery. Oh, right. Dead Children. This is the playground, right?
Oh, sorry. Dead Children's Playground. Even worse. Yeah. Even worse. The playground.
But to be fair, the playground is in the cemetery, correct?
Yeah. And one thing that I found really fascinating about this place is in 2007, I believe it was, the cemetery was actually running out of room. And when you see where this playground is right in the cemetery, they made the decision to remove the playground to expand the cemetery. And the locals were pissed. So much so that the cemetery, whoever owns it, reversed the decision and put new playground equipment there so that playground is still active.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a bad playground. I mean, obviously it's got a creepy location, creepy nickname, but yeah. I mean, it looks like a good playground. I found the images of it. Actually, phenomenal drone footage in the open air here. Somebody put in some work. I was never, ever, ever expecting you to find video footage of this playground, and that was the actual playground. That wasn't just stock footage there.
When you say it's still active, do you mean paranormally active or active, like people still bring their kids to play at this playground?
Both.
Yeah, both.
There's plenty of families that go there during the day and bring their children to the playground to play on, and they believe that the spirits are still there. The theory is that it's from that Spanish flu outbreak in 1918 to 1919, where they don't have exact numbers, but they're saying that they think maybe hundreds of children died and were buried in Maple Hill Cemetery. And the theory is that those are the children that are going over there, which I have a little bit of a hard time with, believing that it would be specifically just that group of children. I think that it could be multiple different generations of children that are going over to this playground. If we talk about unfinished business, right? Like being a reason why people stick around in spirit form. Who has more unfinished business than children?
They may have the most unfinished business,
right? It's sad. They get their lives cut short. They don't have the places like a normal adult would have to haunt in terms of places they've been for the most part. I mean, it's like their house, school, maybe a couple trips, but they don't have the life experience. So it's really sad, but I think it could be any like children that was buried in the cemetery that is haunting this place.
It could be others too. So I assume that they have this playground in the cemetery for people who want to go visit their loved ones, and they bring their kids and they give their kids something to do. So it could even be a relative of a kid buried in the cemetery who used to play at that playground while they were alive. We've talked about it before. It doesn't locations where people visited and had certain emotional experiences could be tied to that after they die.
It's funny you say that, because I was reading some personal ghost stories from this playground, and one of them sort of ties into that idea. It's a little bit different, but there was a group of teenagers that were, it's going to be one of those spots that teenagers go to see if they can see any ghosts, especially there. The legends are the legends. And there was a specific teenager that was there, and he saw the apparition of a girl in a very specific dress come up to him, and the only thing she said to him before disappearing was, "I know you," which is creepy enough, right?
Yeah.
So he goes home and tells his mom of the experience and explains how he saw her appear, the dress that she appeared in, and the mother started crying, and she went and got a picture, and that picture was of a child that she had before him, like a little girl. It was his sister that had passed away, and she was wearing the same exact dress as in that photo. So yeah, so it ended up being his sister that knew him. And I tried to like in my head debunk it. I'm like, he would know of like a dead sibling, but different people grieve differently, and the parents may have never wanted to tell their child until they were an adult of a sibling that passed away, right? So
that is tough. Yeah, like because depending on what age they are, and even if they, if they weren't born yet, whatever. But if they were really young, then you might not even let them know that a sibling had died. It just depends on how you choose to give your child that information, and it's probably different for every parent. It's probably different for every child. You might tell one and not the other because one might just be a little too sensitive or they're too emotional to be able to handle that kind of stuff. And the last thing you want to do is psychologically damage that child as well. So that's kind of the parent's decision there. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. So very creepy story. Very creepy just to hear giggling as you walk by this place.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're walking by and to see a swing just moving on its own with no air. So we get the rocking chair, we get the swing.
I feel like you don't need the with no wind qualifier if you have multiple swings and only one of them is swinging.
That's a good point too.
It's true.
That is a good point. Yeah, so absolutely terrifying location. I really want to go to Huntsville for multiple reasons. I want to knock on the mausoleum and see if we hear a rocking chair. To be completely honest, like that is,
yeah,
that's that's something I really want to do in Huntsville. I obviously want to go by the playground and see if we can capture anything there as well. And there's just so many places in Huntsville.
Maybe go down a sweet slide.
Ooh. Yeah.
Could be fun,
Yeah.
To investigate.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be there for. Some say that we are the greatest investigators ever.
Most.
Yeah,
most say that we're.
And then some say you guys are just on the slides too often. You feel like you guys are just in it for the slides. And that may be the case. Steffe asks if this is on the list. This is absolutely on the list. 100%. I'd love to go here.
Yeah, which the list we are compiling.
I want you to know
2025.
That I'm curious and want to ask how close this is to New Orleans, but I don't want to get roasted in the chat for my geography being off. So I won't ask.
I'm going to assume
he doesn't want to
quite
know.
a distance.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
If Thomas died in Mobile, either on his way to New Orleans or coming home from New Orleans, I'm going to assume it's quite a distance from New Orleans. Just I'm also using my knowledge of living in Mississippi.
Mona says hours away, but that's...
everything is hours away. How many?
I know. Is it 3 hours away or is it 16 hours away?
Oh, geez, we're not knocking out this list anytime soon. Papa Squatch's been keeping track, and it turns out that my list is up to 388 haunted locations. So
I believe he's being hyperbolic.
No, he's keeping a list. Nightbot is adding one every time he types that in.
All right, fair enough.
That is insane, I think.
Well, I mean, we're at episode 134, so I don't really know. Below Me in Chicago donates $2 in super chat. Says, "Is Dave tall enough to play at the playground?"
No.
Oh,
imagine not being tall enough to play at a playground.
God,
imagine being the guy that
so iffy a couple weeks ago.
Imagine being the guy at the playground that has to tell. He's like, "No, you short little shit, get the hell out of here." Dave's like, "Come on."
You think you can go on a swing set? No, we're not picking you up. Get out of here.
I'm not here to help you.
I did see if someone asked if we're going on the next Bridgewater tour. We are not able to do that again. We have other commitments, unfortunately.
Oh, crazy. Like that is a heartbreakingly sad story. So says my older brother died when I was a baby. When I was 12, I dreamed of this little kid who kept asking to play. When I told my dad, he said the description matched my brother. Ooh. Man, that's heavy stuff. That is heavy stuff. Yeah. But that's still kind of cool. You know, he's visiting you, you know, that's oh man, that made me sad as hell, bro.
That made me sad too.
Thanks a lot.
Hometown sad stories. We're all sad now.
Yeah.
But no, it is a good story. It lets you know, right? Like that. He's okay.
That is true. That is true. Anything else in Alabama here that we want to cover in Huntsville?
No, I mean, there's plenty more that I want to cover in Huntsville, but we're going to save it for either a trip there at some point or a part 2 in the future, which you know how we do with part 2s. It could be next month or it could be 15 years from now. You never know. We like to throw curveballs at you.
We've only ever done one part 2.
No, we've done multiple part 2s.
Well, I mean, like, not besides the consecutive one that was an intentional part 1 and 2, but I think we've only gone back to a city once, and I think it was Chicago. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, other than back-to-back episodes, I think you might be right. Crazy Legs dropping another 5 in super chat to cheer us up.
You know what city we'll never do a part 2 on? Because we're never going to do a part 1.
Boston.
Is Boston.
Youngstown.
Any city in Ohio? Yeah, we're never doing that ever again.
Which, by the way, Boston, unbelievably haunted. There are so many. That Papa Squatch just dropped 20 gifteds in the super chat. I'm sorry to the audio listeners who have to just listen to us say this over and over again, but this is absolutely amazing. This is why it's the best community. And if you're an audio listener who has never been to a live broadcast, swing on over, because chat is amazing, not just with the donations, but with the jokes, the comments, with the support. You guys are the best listenership in the world.
Absolutely. If you haven't been over here, you are missing out on being able to donate money to us.
Why wouldn't you want to do that? That's great. No, but even those of you who can't donate, the best way to support the show is drop a review. So if you are an audio listener and you haven't dropped a review yet, drop a 5-star review. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who helped out today. The album is officially finished. Woo! That means I'm going to listen to it and change 1,000 things again. But in theory, it is finished. We went through and we named every single track. So Discord helped out with that. And we'll drop the full track list on Patreon. I do need your help once again, everybody, audio listeners, people in live chat, Discord members, people who are going to listen to this tomorrow, whatever. Now we need to come up with a name for the entire album. So if you're unfamiliar, all of the music that you hear on Hometown Ghost Stories, I produce with the help of my brother Seth on guitar, phenomenal guitar player. Andrew Wilkins has contributed to the album as well. He plays the hurdy-gurdy and the accordion on a couple tracks. My dad even hopped in, Pops, Brodad. He hopped in and played the harmonica on a song. So it's a family affair over here, but all of the songs that you've heard as backing music or intro and outro music, I make all of it. So everyone's been asking, what are we going to do? When are we going to drop this? Is this available on Spotify? It will be available on Spotify. I'm aiming for the end of this month because I know it takes a little while to process. But the album's finished. I actually just finished mastering the whole thing as well. And now we need a name for the album. So let us know.
Like Tessa's suggestion. She wants you to name the album Nimrod.
It's been done.
I think that's been done before.
It's been done by Green Day.
Mm-hmm.
Good call, though.
Yep. So each, like I said, each track is named off after a location that we've covered loosely. So Kathy F coming in and dropping 20 Hometown Ghost Stories memberships. Guys, it's going to be a 24-hour stream. We're just going to keep it going. This is going really beautifully.
I've done one of those recently, and I do not want to do that again.
Oh, you suck. You did a 12-hour stream, not a 24-hour stream. Anyways. Yeah, so you know, try to stick with that theme of we have you know, the it's based off the show. You know, obviously it's music from the show and then a few tracks that you haven't heard yet. But I don't know what to call it. So we'll come up with something. But drop it in Discord. If you did drop it in chat here, it will likely be missed. But we'll but throw it in Discord so we can come up with a name for it. And you know what? If we pick your name, maybe there will be a special prize for whatever you come up with. So that will be it.
We've had listeners come up with names before. I think Haunted Headlines is a
Haunted Headlines.
Yeah.
For some reason, we couldn't come up with that.
We couldn't figure that out. The three of us.
We were literally going to call it Ghosts in the News.
Ghosts in the News.
That's terrible. I'm so glad we didn't do that.
Yeah.
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 Because we never talk about ghosts on anymore either. We talk about people eating fucking 100 ears of corn.
That's
Calling themselves the human horse.
Is I don't know if we're running out of stories, but yeah, that was a weird one, but it was actually absolutely hilarious. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yes.
Any reviews we want to go over?
Yeah, let's do this one from Kev369 titled "Wonderfully Refreshing and Spooky." I recently started listening and I'm completely hooked. The chemistry between the hosts is everything you can ask for in a podcast, and they mix humor and spooky perfectly. I'm going through the backlog of episodes on my long work days, and they make my days go by so much faster. Keep up the great work. So thank you very much to Kev for that review. And you can also leave us a review anywhere. You can even shoot us an email or leave it on Discord if you listen to us on one of those weird podcast apps that I can't even name off the top of my head.
Yeah, fun fact, I was Googling haunted places in which one was it? A few guys were there because I was live streaming while touching up some songs earlier. I was on Twitch, but the I was Googling, I'm like, oh, what were the haunted locations at yada yada location? And the Google response was ripped directly from our script, and then they credited us. I was like, wait, that's us. That was fucking cool. Like, we are the definition of the hauntings at this. I think it was Port Royal. So if you Google right now, if you Google haunted Port Royal, Jamaica, the thing that pops up, Gallows Point was the designated location for the executions of anyone convicted of piracy in Port Royal, Jamaica. Is said to be haunted by the ghosts of many pirates who met their end there, including Calico Jack Rackham, Charles Vane, and Mary Reid, among others. Directly from episode 38 of Hometown Ghost Stories, The Ghost Pirates of Gallows Point, Port Royal, Jamaica. Isn't that fucking cool?
That is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I like that. Anyways,
that's my words.
Those are Dave wrote that.
Dave wrote those words.
Pretty cool. Anyways, let's thank our patrons real quick, starting with our VIPs. We have Casey W, Brendina 77, Kathy F, Ghost Nurse, Janet T, another Vice. Dave has a new kangaroo onesie with a bottom flap. Tess, Jesse, and Dave have the prettiest teeth I have ever seen. Jeez. Jesse is the most handsome, strong, and brave. Dave D, Kate and Steve M, Sharon V, Glitter Tees, Cami from Washington, Kelly C, Jennifer P, Nick, Donnie N, Inspires Gaming, Allison V, Robert H, and this week's VIP, Anna C, Jeannie, I'm sorry, the RIP. Still alive and kicking. Mallory from Montana, Mom and Pops W, Papa Squatch, Lisa J, and the Kangaroo Man, Mike Oubliette. Blake, thank you so much for being VIPs. Next up, we have the Warren's Wards, and let's kick that off with Nick M. We have Jeremy M, Beth C, Serena, Shawners, Apple, Steph, Leslie F, Rachel G, Her Lady Spookship, Nefarious Chad Poles, Wahidi Pirate, I Am the Bridge Witch, and I Hate Rob, Julie Gooley, Eugene M, Arcade, Mopeds, Bubbles, and Chihuahuas. Oh my, Hunters. Just a little PTSD for me getting bit by a Chihuahua while on a moped. Colby, Kath Q, Liz Young, DC, Chris Connolly, LBPS founder, Next, HTGS guest, the other Rachel B, Sarah Cook, Zeta Chimera, Janice G, Rachel B, Rob, Alter Ego, the Grumpy Nimrod, your most favorite absent fan. That's Sydney right there. We love you, Sydney. Haunter of the kids at Nimrod Playgrounds, Steph A. Stan the Mans with the ham hands, and Rob secretly loves fishing. Thank you so much for being part of the Warren's Wards. And next up, we have the Ghost Pirate Mafia. Let's start that off with Amber R, Brant C, Emily P, Whisper, Shane J. Should I have whispered that? Whisper. Okay. Shane J, Mrs. Nardozzi, Kitten Clown, Shane O'Mac, Macho Mandolf versus Rob in a human dog kennel match. Joe Shay, that's a good human dog kennel reference right there. Trevor S, you can't triple stamp and double stamp. Lloyd, Christina S, Kate C, Chrissy, Kelly C, Isla D, Doobie Doobie Boo. That was confusing for everyone. Crazy Legs 2005, West Virginia coal miner, hashtag Eli Manning 2 times. Just call me Bree, Miss Macabre, Michelle, Naroku, Cold Warrior, Rob's toe sucking collection. Let me say that again. Rob's. No, that's in the name. It's in the name. Let me say it again. Rob, you have to put on your headphones. It's part of the show. You have to wear your headphones. Rob's toe-sucking collection.
come on.
Let me say that again. Rob's
How many times are you going to
toe-sucking
say this? You've
collection.
said it
Well,
15
I had
times.
to start it over because you left, and now you interrupted me, so I have to do it again.
Bro.
No, I'm kidding. All right. Nimrod from H-Town, Meta A, Sarah B, Dominica, Monster Mom 04, Wicked Alley, Dark Snark. Why are Rob's lips twice as wide as a normal person? In every photo he takes, he looks like Beetlejuice.
Wow.
Why are people so mean to you? Megan S, Morgan S, Wayne C, Nimrod's nanny notices nothing not normal nowadays. Try to get me, Nancy, but you didn't get me. Crystal Quinn, aka not a Rob fan. Thick Boy Freddy's baby mama trying to listen while at Demon Spawn's cheer practice. Alicia E. Thick Boy Freddy and Joe Hendry versus Macho Mandolph and Rob Croakley in a haunted hotel spoogly woogly street fight. I'd watch that. Swanee, the moon is haunted by the ghosts of Huntsville. Sam from Nepal, Joe R. Al Capone, I should have worn a kangaroo suit, Huggy Bear, and then we're on to the second page. Coming soon, The Bell Witch, presented by Rob, Solar Flare, Mariah M., Kiralee J. For now, I'm just Anthony T., Cody G., Brandon W., Hooply Whooply, Bridge Witch, and the Polka Guys. Thank you so much. Whew, that is a long list, and we appreciate all of you. Next investigation, we are flying down to New Orleans, and we'll be dropping some more information on the locations that we're covering. I believe it's multiple locations, but we will let you know. We have confirmed that there will be an actual investigation there. Whether or not there will be a live stream, I don't know, because it is very limited time-wise. But we will definitely, at a minimum, drop some exclusive content on Patreon and maybe even some stuff for the YouTube members. $1.99 from Youngstown Pizza says, "Take that, Rob." And let's go ahead and take this show off the air.
$1.99 for a pizza from Ohio. So how about that?
Well, a lot of generosity in the chat today. We'll spend it all on Ohio pizza. We do thank you guys so much. You are the reason that we do this show, because you're awesome and you actually listen to it. So that's good. Again, send me in those album names. And other than that, we'll be back on Friday with a haunted headlines
movie review. Friday the 13th.
Oh, is that what's? Oh, look at that. We have a Friday the 13th coming up, so we're dropping that. And then keep an eye out for Alien Romulus. We have to go to the theaters and see that, because that one will be the next movie that we review. Exciting stuff.
And if you sign up on Patreon Friday, you get early access to The Ghost of JFK, I believe. Correct?
Right. Celebrity Hauntings.
Yes.
They are back. It's been a while. We're going to knock it out. Anyways, I think that'll pretty much do it. Anything else, gentlemen?
Well, that's going to do it for me.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love every single one of you, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Peace.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for making it through another episode of Hometown Ghost Stories. If you liked that video, hit like. If you loved that video, hit subscribe. And if you hated that video, well, then why are you still here? Either way, join us on all of our live shows every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That much is guaranteed. But sometimes we do surprise shows. We don't tell anyone. We'll just show up with a live show one day, and you won't know about it unless you have that notification bell turned on. So if you don't, turn on that notification so that you don't miss any of our impromptu live shows. Catch us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, comment live, watch your comments pop up on the screen, interact with us, make fun of us, whatever. And if you want to support the show, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and we'll read it out loud live on the show. Also, for as little as $3 a month, you can subscribe to us on Patreon and join the legendary cast of patrons with your name in the credits. Plus, you'll gain access to all the extra bonus Patreon exclusive content that we have on that platform. Either way, we'll be here next Tuesday with a brand new episode. We'll see you then.